welcome to Oakleaf Talent Talks. Thank you. I've got Eunice Clements-Tweedie with me, the Global Head of Talent Acquisition from Lego. So thank you so much for coming along and joining us today. The Talent Talk series is all about helping our candidates when they're looking for work or developing their HR skills. And I think something that's really important right now is standing out from the crowd. And that's difficult right now as well, bearing in mind there's so many job hunters out there. And you've always stood out to me as someone who stands out from the crowd. So sorry if that's embarrassing for me to say. And you work for Lego as well, and there's a brand that totally stands out from the crowd as well. So can you, before we get started, maybe tell us a little bit about you and what you're doing?
Yeah, absolutely. Hi everyone, my name's Eunice. So I head up talent acquisition at the Lego Group, which has got to be one of the coolest jobs, I think, ever. And I'm super humbled to do it for the Lego Group. So the team and I are the architects of talent acquisition end to end. And what we do, we fundamentally curate and care for our talent acquisition ecosystem, from everything from how we go to market around talent attraction and employer brand, how we look after our performance of recruitment and our engine room, and then all the way up to the other end is how we hire phenomenal leadership talent into the business. And we love what we do, so super lucky to do what we do where we do it.
How brilliant is that? So when we talk about standing out from the crowd, what do we mean?
So this is such an amazing question. So I think we live in a culture which is permanently on. I think there's a lot of white noise permanently surrounding us, and there's a lot of competing priorities for oxygen. Agendas, marketing, everything really, swirls us around us in a little tornado. So I think when I think about standing out from the crowd, I think it's how we differentiate what we do and how we differentiate how we do it. So fundamentally, it's anchoring the USP and your own USP into something very, very solid, and then playing that drumbeat in a really regular way. So it kind of pops and sparkles all around, and it really kind of cuts through that white noise, which is fundamentally what you're trying to do when you're trying to stand out from the crowd.
Absolutely, absolutely. So can you give me an example of how you have ensured that you stood out from the crowd?
Oh my goodness me. Well, I always wear fabulous shoes, something I'm known for. I've got a pair on today, and I always try and do things a little bit different. So for example, when I was hiring my own team at Lego, I made sure that I FaceTimed the offer to these amazing candidates who now work in the team, and they weren't expecting that. So it's a little bit about the unexpected. In my interview at Lego, it was a really tough panel interview, and I had my Darth Vader clock, I had my USB on a Lego Yoda keyring, and I had my Yoda pen and notebook. And it kind of signaled to Lego that I was 100% invested in them, and they weren't surprised at my Lego paraphernalia when I brought it out of my bag. That's a couple of things I always do. And I always try and ensure that people remember how I made them feel in a really, really good way. So I guess there's just a couple of USPs I always kind of hang on to. And I guess people remember them because they talk about them kind of, now and then, which is hopefully a good thing.
All of us are fascinated by Lego. We've all grown up with Lego, haven't we? So could you maybe share a story that will give us some insight in how they continue to stand out from the crowd again and again and again?
Oh my goodness, we have only got a short time, haven't we, Jenny? Yeah. My goodness, Lego do so many incredible things every day. And if you think about our consumers, they are fundamentally children, although we have a huge, adult fan base. But, children are our role models. So that is the epicenter of our thoughts when we think about everything we do. And there's incredible stories that we hear from our consumer services team about children writing in. We hear amazing stories from our Lego Foundation, and I'll share one of the stories from the Lego Foundation. So we had, and we have so many, we had one of our technicians out in Denmark, And he heard from the local hospital that a lot of children were super scared of using some of the equipment in the hospital, like the MRI scanners, and they were having to be put to sleep because they were so fearful of these MRI scanners, but they were very poorly and they had these conditions they need to be tested. So in his spare time, he put together an MRI scanner model. And then one of our designers actually helped him craft it and make it like super cool. And then we produced these MRI scanner models and we shipped them to the hospital wings in Denmark that had MRI scanners for the children to play in the waiting room, and so they could obviously release their fears and talk about it. And what happened, the doctor said, over the coming months and etc., they find that they didn't have to put the children to sleep anymore through the MRI scanners because they were happy enough to go through it without this horrible fear of this horrible scary equipment. And therefore we fundamentally changed how those children were being treated, which I don't know about you, but it sends goosebumps down every time I think about it. And we have so many of those incredible stories from our employees and from our consumers about how we make people feel, which goes back to the whole USP and being a differentiator for sure. So incredible, absolutely incredible.
I suppose not. When you think about standing out from the crowd, you don't think about how you make people feel as being a thing that might stand out from the crowd, but I think that's absolutely it. It's such a takeaway.
Yeah, absolutely.
Definitely. So talking about takeaways, what any advice that you'd give to candidates to be noticed, what would you say?
Oh God, my favourite. I have so many questions. Apart from killer shoes, if that's your thing, my go-to fail-safe, either where I've been interviewing candidates or I've been a candidate myself, and I would say is do your preparation on who you're going to be interviewed by. There's so much information on LinkedIn, on Google, on Twitter, on Instagram. Find out something that's going to connect you to your interviewer, because if you find common ground, as you're going up the elevator or walking to the interview room, you immediately make that connection, and they will remember again how you made them feel. So do your research, not only in the role you're applying for and being interviewed for, but the people who are actually interviewing you. Super killer point. That's amazing. So let's do that first of all. Yeah. Second is I would find out the company's values that you are being interviewed by, and I'd weave them into your storytelling when being interviewed, because if they pop up, it will be a signal to your future employer that A, you've done the research, and B, you care about how values are intrinsic in their everyday, and they will really, really notice that. I mean, if I had a candidate and they were sharing their storytelling or examples and they were sharing our values in them, I'd be absolutely blown away and I would remember them. So that I'd say probably that's a second killer point. The third I would say is manners are everything, Jenny. So I often send digital thank yous. I often send handwritten notes, and I always send thank you emails when I've been interviewed, because I think we forget that manners are everything, and it's not often that a candidate does that. And it's hugely appreciated, and it will make you be remembered for somebody with manners and grace, which is a lovely human trait which everybody likes to do. So I would say those are probably my top three things.
Love them. Oh my gosh. Well, I mean, thank you so much. Talk about manners. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
It's been really lovely to get some handy hints and tips about standing out from the crowd, but also to hear a little bit about you and Lego and how that story's unfolding. It sounds like there's still plenty to be done.
Definitely.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much. You take care, and
thank you, Jen.
I'll look forward to sharing this out among our network. So thanks a lot.
No, thanks for your time. Thank you, everyone. Speak to you soon.
Bye.
Okay. Bye.